Welcome everyone. I have some great news. I'm excited to tell you all that listeners of the podcast and supporters of the Mushin martial culture YouTube channel and endeavors are now able to enjoy a 10% discount from any purchases made from Dynasty Clothing and Gear. Dynasty is an amazing brand and company that I have been an avid fan of for many years. It's an authentic martial arts and lifestyle street fashion brand that is made by martial artists for martial artists. They make excellent products for a variety of martial arts disciplines, and their designs really do celebrate these. For me, as you are all well aware, being a Chinese martial artist, their products are amazing because they focus on Chinese martial arts and its culture in their designs. They are truly unique and resonate with the history, imagery, and culture of Chinese Kung Fu, which is very close to my heart, and I'm sure to many of yours as well. For example, they have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gi featuring none other than the famed Song Dynasty general and martyr UFA. I can't think of a better gi that represents the spirit of Chinese martial arts and indeed the history and culture of China. I'm going to have to get me one of those. They produce a variety of products, including items for various modern combat sports, MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and others, as well as training gear and streetwear. In addition to the fantastic designs, their product quality is top-notch. Go visit their website and take a look. Their website address is www.dynastyclothingstore.com. And if you use the promo code MUSHIN, M-U-S-H-I-N, at checkout, you will get a 10% discount on your order. That promo code once again is MUSHIN, M-U-S-H-I-N. So, go get shopping. Once again, I appreciate any and all support for both the Drunken Boxing podcast as well as the Mushin Martial Culture YouTube channel and all the endeavors that I do through my Patreon. We have a Patreon. It's been set up just for a couple of months. If you enjoy these endeavors, want to assist me and support me in continuing to do both the podcast and whatever else we release on the Mushin Martial Culture YouTube channel, pop on over to the Patreon page and you can pledge what you can pledge there. There's a couple of tiers. The Patreon page is, you can find it at patreon.com/Mushin Martial Culture. The links are in the show notes. And once again, I appreciate any and all support. Now for some news. As you guys know, I have been releasing the Li Ziming documentary in parts as I restore and subtitle them. There are 2 episodes of the 5 left to release, and episode 4 should be out this week. Also, Kung Fu Explained episode 2 has been released, and it is focusing on the Shaolin Temple, its history and legacy. It's going to be a multi-part series, and episode 1 is out. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. My guest from the last episode of the podcast, Les Con, has been very active in releasing extremely interesting videos on his research as well as his teachings on his YouTube channel. It's fascinating stuff, and if you haven't already, go check out his channel. I'll leave links in the show notes to his channel as well as his website. Okay, on to this week's episode. My guest today is Veronica Partikova. Veronica started her martial arts training in 1999, initially with Shotokan Karate, and shortly thereafter started to practice the southern Chinese style of Hung Ga Kune, which she continues to do up until today. In 2013, she relocated permanently to Hong Kong in order to study Hung Ga Kune closely with her Shifu Wong Chung Man. While in Hong Kong, she completed her PhD in sports psychology with a focus on mental toughness and collectivism in traditional Chinese martial arts. During this period, she also participated in both European and world-level Chinese martial arts competitions and has achieved first and second places numerous times with her Hung Ga Kune. In 2017, she began to practice MMA. And she fell in love with it so much so that she is on her track to make her pro debut. She currently still resides in Hong Kong, training both Hung Ga and MMA, as well as teaching. You know, it's truly pleasing to see more and more Chinese martial artists bridge that gap and represent Chinese martial arts in the MMA arena. And Veronica is doing a great job in this endeavor. I have great hope for her in the future and her career in this field. She also has her own website called Kung Fu Academic and a YouTube channel. Again, I'll link these in the show notes below. All right, so let's get right into it. Here is Veronica Partikova. Okay, welcome to the Drunken Boxing Podcast, Veronica. Veronica Partikova, old friend of mine, probably not as well known as you should be to the listeners, but hopefully after this podcast, more people will know about you. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
So you're currently in Hong Kong, originally
Right.
from the Czech Republic. A martial artist who started with, well, let me let you give your background there.
I started with karate actually,
Okay.
like in Czech in 1999, because that time, after the communism, we didn't have too many styles in the country, and so we had judo, we had karate, that was everywhere. And then I switched to kung fu, to Hung Ga, Kung Kune, and then I decided I'm gonna move to Hong Kong because I wanted to study more from the source.
Right.
And so I came to Hong Kong for 1 year, and it's been 6 years, and I'm still here.
Yeah, it's a very long 1 year.
Yeah, it's pretty long. Tell my mama.
She probably thinks the calendars over here in Asia are very, very strange.
Yeah, we have like different calendar here.
Yeah. But you started with what kind of karate back in the Czech Republic?
It was Shotokan.
Okay.
It was Shotokan, and I was 11, and I wanted to fight, and
Right.
that wasn't very okay because girls don't fight.
Of course not. No, of course they don't fight.
Yeah, no. Actually, I wanted to do martial arts much sooner than that, but my parents didn't let me because, again,
Girls
that's
don't
like
fight.
not girls. Yes, so they sent me to ballet,
Ah,
and they kicked me out after like a year.
right.
And yeah, so I was like, when I started with karate, I was like into kumite. That wasn't like full contact; it was like light contact.
Yeah.
But the traditional way of kumite, not like the point system of the modern karate. And then I switched to kung fu, and sanda wasn't very much my thing, so I did mostly. I competed a lot. I still compete in forums, but so I kind of stopped fighting for a very long time.
Right.
And then when I was here in Asia, I wanted to spar more, and it's not really a thing here for the local kung fu schools to spar.
In Hong
So
Kong,
I-
really, there's no
Yeah, in
sparring?
Hong Kong. There are some exceptions, of course, but
Yeah.
mostly people now, they don't really want to spar or do some kind of drills or things like that. They want to do forms. They want to socialize a lot.
I see.
Yeah, so it's very different. Like the level of the knowledge is much deeper than back home,
Yeah.
but the like the how much contact there is was much more back home than here.
Sure. So what you're
So-
saying is the technical depth and wealth of knowledge is far greater in Hong Kong, but
Right.
the avenues to apply it in a realistic or training way, or even just in a training manner, is not really common anymore here in Hong Kong. I mean.
Right. So what my Shifu told me that before it was different, that there were lots of fighting and lots
Yes.
of drills, lots of basics, but that's like not true anymore too much.
I mean,
But
I know
of
people
course.
that have been in Hong Kong for a long time before doing Chinese martial arts, like probably the 70s and the 80s, and they said it was even different back then. So it's
Yeah.
interesting, and it's also interesting that it's Westerners that are more trying to, well, not just trying to do something about it, but realize that this is problematic,
Right.
and it seems like what's happening in most of the Asian side of things is that they don't think it's a problem. They're the ones going in the other way. So it's very interesting. But
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
when I came to Hong Kong, I started to look for some kind of platform where I could spar. So I went through boxing and sanda again, and then I
Well, you we had some technical disconnection there. You were saying that you went and started to find some places, did some boxing, did some sanda.
Yeah, and then at the end I end up with MMA. So
Okay.
that's how I got there trying to fight with my kung fu.
Well, is there a lot of MMA in Hong Kong?
Yeah, there is. I mean, not as many as probably kung fu schools,
Hmm.
but yes, like it's easier to find them because they usually have a website. They have like proper gym with like showers and everything is nice and
Yeah.
like yeah the environment, the experience is so much different from like traditional kung fu school.
Yeah.
But like yeah, like there are lots of MMA schools here or gyms, but also it's not the history of MMA in Hong Kong is not that long.
Right. And is it popular though? I mean, are there a lot of people that are eager to practice?
Yeah. It is pretty popular. They had even some like TV shows with MMA, like kind of reality shows with some fighting and things like that.
That's interesting because it's. I mean, we have Hong Kong, which is ostensibly already part of China for quite a long time now. They share the same Ministry of Sport even, and they are somewhat included within the national games of China. Therefore, they have the same sporting events promoted or available to them in both China and in Hong Kong. And Sanda is one of the events, but it's interesting that Hong Kong almost never, in terms of Sanda World Championships, they almost never compete. And when they do, it's very few athletes, maybe one or two, and they're generally it's not very well developed, which when I spoke to coaches, they said it's not so popular in Hong Kong. So it's interesting to me that Sanda isn't popular, but MMA is very popular.
Yeah, well, I don't know why that is. When I trained Sanda here, it was with not directly with the Hong Kong team, but like with the group out of which they would like take out the people for the competitions. So maybe it's different now, or maybe there is another group that I didn't know of in the Institute of Sports, which is like the main place for all these like full-time athletes in Hong Kong, including modern wushu.
Right.
I didn't go there, so I'm not sure. But I think that Sanda isn't there. And what I saw was like quite typical like situation where the athletes would just train after school or after work, not
okay.
like full-time athletes.
Like amateur. And
Yeah.
and is it reasonably popular, Sanda?
Well, there were quite few people, like, yes, I guess yes, but I think in MMA gyms or boxing gyms or, like the other, like, combat sports, there, I saw more people there.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing though, and I think it's because, I mean, we've had this discussion over the years amongst ourselves, me and you especially, about the situation that sport wushu is in, and I think even though as great a format Sanda is when it came out, and all the advantages it has over, let's say, for example, point sparring or specific one-dimensional combat arts, like, let's say, for example, wrestling. It's got the full contact aspect to it. It's got punching and kicking, and it's got wrestling to a degree with takedowns. But even with all of that, with the bubble that China's been in, and especially Sanda and Wushu sport for the last 20 years, it's been left behind by MMA, because MMA has all of those things now and more. So the fact that Sanda has been so divorced from the traditional Wushu or the traditional Chinese martial arts elements that it's just a thing on its own is actually a disadvantage, because when you look at Sanda on its merits, it doesn't have cultural merits. It doesn't have historical merits. And when you look at practicality, advantages compared to something like MMA, it's not as full, or doesn't encompass as many aspects as MMA. So purely from that point of view, people would be more keen to, well, if they weighed those two up, full contact is full contact. You're going to get hit, right? So out of those two, you'd want to go for something that you can develop more of your skills. So I think that's something that's quite important.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, when I did karate and we competed in kumite, even though it was not the full contact type, it's still like you could see, you in the discipline you could see it's karate. Like you fight with karate in karate discipline. But sanda, to me, I don't really see, like, I don't know what should I see in sanda.
I understand, and that's actually what could we say? That's the illusion, and I hate to say this, that's the illusion that wushu sport, but specifically the general the general direction and movement for wushu as a sport here in China has it wasn't something that developed naturally out of the traditional practices. So that's what you said with kumite. It was something that developed out of the base of the traditional karate practitioners over time with a goal, but it came out of them. It wasn't put into them. Sanda wasn't. Sanda wasn't something that came out of the practitioners themselves. It was something that was made by a centralized endeavor, and very late into the game when they had already stopped allowing competition of combat competition here in China. So even though it says wushu sanda on it, that's just a label. When, you know, it's like you can put something in a box, but if you open it and take it out the box, it might not necessarily be what the box says, and that's what you've just highlighted there.
Right.
So yeah, I wanted to get back to your initial Hung Ga training in the Czech Republic. So was that something new when it started there, or was it just that there's not so many practitioners there before?
No, I don't think it was new. The start of Hung Ga was maybe 10 years before I joined.
Right.
So it wasn't that new, but it also wasn't like that traditional for Czech, or like, you know, that common. Judo and karate was still much more common, so it was easier to find that.
Got it.
So yeah, so actually when I got into Hung Ga, I wasn't really sure what it is. I was looking for kung fu, you know. I didn't know that there are different styles and things like that.
A lot of people start like that. In fact, I started with a southern style because I was just looking for kung fu, like you said, when I was young.
Right.
And the school that I found just happened to be teaching southern-based style. So, yeah, it's the same thing. And who was the teacher originally there?
Jiří Hauska. So I spent around eight years in the school, I think, something like that. Yeah. And with him, I actually went to Hong Kong for the first time, join a competition here, and like see the culture and everything, do some training here. Yeah, so that was the like introduction for me into it. So that was really important.
And where did he learn his Hung Ga from?
Oh, he had lots of teachers actually. He started in Czech and then Greece, Hong Kong, and I think now it's Greece again. Or London as well. Mm-hmm.
In Greece, is it Master Tong?
Yeah. Tam Tong Wing.
Yeah, I've met him. I met him, I think, 6 or 7 years ago when I was in Athens. Yeah. So,
really?
But he's got quite a. He teaches quite a few things. I think he teaches Wing Chun. I think he teaches Mantis. I think he teaches.
Master Tang?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Mantis. Maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, Wing Chun, Hung Ga, Tai Chi.
Right.
I think.
Right.
Qigong, some sort of Qigong. Yeah.
So in the Czech Republic, was the more popular style Southern style? I mean, did Hung Ga grow quite popular there?
Well, Hung Ga is actually pretty common in Czech. There are like maybe 10 to 15 schools, which is maybe like there is no other style that will have so many schools in Czech. Right. I don't really have the numbers, but I think it's something like that, yeah. Which is like just by accident we have so many schools. So actually people here in Hong Kong, when there was some birthday party of Master Lam Jo who died already, they usually joke that there were more Czech people than Hong Kong people on the picture.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That means that it was actually quite successful in its popularization within the Czech Republic. And when you were there, was Sanda not really well practiced?
In Czech, you mean?
Yeah.
we did sanda in well we did some fighting right, in the Hung Ga class, probably like yeah, sanda, but like it was never really my thing. I never really felt comfortable in sanda. Like it has such a different flavor than MMA for me, so it was never my thing.
I see. And you moved over to Hong Kong. Did you know where you were going to go train when you went there? And was it only for training, or were you going to go do some other studies while you were there?
Yeah, it was only for training. And I actually moved to Hong Kong first as a... Yeah, so I actually, before I moved here, I was exchange student here in Hong Kong for half a year.
All right.
So that made things quite easier. You live on campus and people take care of you, so it was kind of easy peasy. And my Shifu from Czech, he told me about my nowadays Shifu Wong Chung Man, and he gave me his contact. So I had some private class with him. I also trained with another guy called Max Shifu, and so after those 6 months, I realized that like it's such different Hung Ga than the one I know from Czech that I either move here or I quit. That like there's no sense of doing it.
What was so vastly different? What was so vastly different?
Well, for example, like in the stances and the move, how you move your legs, the footwork, the angles, the biomechanics of it. There's always like a reason. Like there's a geometry in how you move, right? And I didn't know that from Czech. It was more like you do it somehow.
Yeah, you just step.
Like you just step. But that wasn't good enough for me. I wanted more. I wanted to know precisely why, how to measure.
Yeah.
You know.
That's an important question when people do any martial art, is why. And I think too few martial artists ask themselves why. And it doesn't just mean one aspect. It's multidimensional, this question why. You should ask why with everything, you know. And I've known you for quite a few years. You're an intelligent martial artist, so it's natural that this is how you would you'd gravitate towards your training.
Yeah. So then when I decided to move to Hong Kong, I was looking for a job here for quite some time back in Czech, because I couldn't really afford to go to Hong Kong and then find a job here while staying here.
Of course.
Because Hong Kong is so then expensive.
Yeah.
So I got a job as English native teacher.
Well, that's okay.
Because I'm white, right? So I'm qualified to teach English in Hong Kong. So that's how usually people do for the first job they get here.
Same thing here in mainland China. I mean, and also you'll have like you know, maybe somebody who's of Indian descent, but he's second generation American, and they'll be like, no, we don't want Indian people to teach us. And he's like, I'm not Indian, I'm American, I speak fluent English. They're like, yeah, but the students, you know, so you know, it's I know what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So they told me, like, if anyone asks, tell them you are from Europe. Don't tell them Czech, tell them Europe. It's like more, you know, sounds more English.
Right.
And if there are parents around, like, don't talk, so they can listen. They can like hear your accent.
Oh, I see.
So that was a pretty shitty job. But anyways, I got here and I went straight to Wong Chung Man Shifu and I asked him if I could be a student, and that's how I started. Yeah.
And what is the training like with him? I mean, what was it like in the beginning? What was so different in terms of just general training approach? What did you like? What didn't you like?
Well, there's almost nothing similar to what I was used to in Europe, in Czech. So, like, training in Hong Kong, the class is around 3 hours. Yeah. And you come when you have time, and then you leave when you want. So there is nothing like a, you know, beginning or nothing like an end. End is usually when Shifu says, okay, let's go have dinner. So that's the end of the class. And so things like warm-up or like greeting or some basics, no, everything is unstructured. It's like having a private class in a group of people. So everyone does what they are like working on. Usually it's a form. and Sifu will just go around and correct them. So I was the only foreigner there.
Right.
Sifu has few students in Germany and in Norway, Victor and Frank, and then in Brazil. And so but when I was there, I was the only foreigner. So there wasn't much English actually. So usually I didn't speak to anyone for the entire time when I was there.
Following. You were just following.
Right. And living in Hong Kong or living in China, that's really difficult.
Yeah.
Because they get the worst out of you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of normal. It's like shaming culture, They would point to what you're doing the worst and call you fatty if you are 60 kg. I mean, not my Sifu, but the people in general here.
Yeah, I know.
Or tell you something in Cantonese and then laugh that you can't understand what they said and things like that. And that's normal. That's normal. That's not rude. That's normal.
Exactly.
So
I had a friend who came to Shenzhen from South Africa, and he started working there. And the one day he contacts me after 3 months, and it was his first time actually living in China, And he contacts me and he's like, "You know what happened today?" I said, "What happened?" "At my work, this Chinese guy came up to me and asked me, 'Hey, why are you so fat?' And I was so insulted. So I looked at him, I said, 'I don't know, why are you so ugly?' And he got angry with me. I said, "Of course he got angry with you, because he was just making small talk with him and with you, and you insulted him. But we're just not used to it, So
yeah.
I don't think it's a good thing though, to be honest, but it's just normal.
Yeah, exactly. So it was in the bit. Well, it's still like that now, but in the beginning more, it was basically just trying to survive this and keep some kind of clear mind, or not to get too crazy about it. And so it's very different if you go to Hong Kong or China and train for 2 weeks and then go back home.
Yeah.
Because people would say, "Oh, you are so good," and they would praise you, and they would be nice to you. But if you're staying, you kind of cross over the line, and they can be mean to you suddenly. So
yes.
So it's very different, and so to gain the respect of the people is difficult, and it's even more difficult if you're a foreigner and if you are a woman.
Yeah.
So I was not only the only foreigner, but also the only woman in the class.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so usually I had a simple strategy that worked quite well. That I just tried to work harder than any local there. So when they usually the people would do their form and then sit down and have a chat. So I never sit down. I was doing basics and doing forms, and I was killing myself.
Yeah.
But it worked. Yeah, it worked. First they call me crazy, and then Sifu was like, "Look at her, do it like her. See, basics, do it like her, follow her." But no one actually did. But
but that's true.
So
I mean, I had a similar experience. But I just I've always had that kind of crazy work ethic. I mean, I've been a crazy martial artist for more than 20 years.
Right.
So when I started living here and training with my teacher, and as you said, and I want to get into this in the next in something that we can discuss later on about the social aspect about it, which is part of your PhD studies with regards to Chinese martial arts, but it's that social aspect that most of the Chinese people in general take when they come to Chinese to come to practice. It's more of a social interaction than a formal interaction. It's
exactly.
So, but myself, I've always just been about working really hard, and I mean, my teacher would do the same thing. Eventually, he'd end up saying, "None of the local people can work as hard as this foreigner," and the sad part about it is you'd think that would make people want to work harder, but a lot of the times it made people hate me more. But like I said, I wasn't there for them, so I mean that's like water off a duck's back for me. So yeah. But you must have benefited in terms of skill improvement too, and it's probably set a habit for your work ethic and how you approach all your training, just having to do that.
I guess. Well, like my Sifu, he's very modern thinking person. Like he's really good guy. He's big happy guy.
Yeah, I've seen
That's like,
his photos.
Yeah, he's very happy, very loud. He's like he doesn't restrict you from going and learn something new. So like now he's unhappy when I'm hurt, but he's also like very supporting in terms of like fighting in MMA, even if it means that I don't have so much time to actually go to his gym and be with him so much as I did before.
Right.
So I'm actually really lucky. I'm really lucky.
Yeah, for sure. But, I mean, the attitude of the teacher is more important than anything else.
Right. What you're saying about the laziness, I must say that this is also part of the culture.
Yeah.
That people would call you that you are lazy very easily, right? And like my MMA coach Tankwa, he's also very like hard-working person. So it's difficult to compare yourself to other people when you are working so hard, right? So then of course everyone else seems to you that you are lazy.
Yeah.
But, so like it's also like part of the culture here that people that coaches would call you lazy. So my coach sent me a message today. He was like, "You're not working, hard enough. You need to work at least like 5-6 days per week, like be in the gym." I was like, "Well, actually, I am like 6 days per week in the gym with you. Actually, you are there every time I'm there." So then things like this happen.
He's like, "Oh, sorry, I was sending out a bulk message to everybody else. I just put you on the contact list."
No, he's a funny guy. Last week I came to the gym on Monday and he was like, "It's good you are here on Monday." I was like, "Man, I'm coming every Monday since I started going into this gym."
Yeah, well, it makes you feel special, right? Like you're noticed, isn't it? Maybe that's part of his. Maybe that's part of his tactic, to make you feel like less than you are.
I'm trying to translate things like that, like into what you're saying, so it's like more easy for me to understand what's actually going on. Yeah, but like what I'm saying, that I'm really lucky that both of my like teachers are really really good people.
Right. Yeah, that's very good. I mean, you are lucky in that. And how long had you done Hung Ga in the Czech Republic? You guys call it Czechia now, don't you?
Yeah, they changed the name while I was here in Hong Kong.
So what should I call it? Can I still call it the Czech Republic?
Yeah, you can. I think they just make it shorter because, like, to write it better in the maps.
Yeah.
But I would never call it Czechia. I just call it Czech.
Oh, okay. How long had you been doing Hung Ga there before you moved to Hong Kong?
I think it's... Okay, so I have been training 12 years now, 13 years, Hung Ga. I think it was like 8 years in Czech. Yeah, okay. Something like that.
Okay. And would you say that, I mean, you guys practice, your lineage comes from the Lam family, if I'm not mistaken. So the core curriculum is the same as most of the Lam family's Hung Ga curriculum?
Well, now here in Hong Kong with my Shifu Wong Shifu, we have some other forms from Wong Lei, but otherwise, yeah, it's the same.
And how much, I mean, is it a very big curriculum? I mean, how much of it do you think you've gotten through yourself?
Wow. Yeah, Hung Ga is huge. How many forms we have? Around 30, maybe.
Well, that's too much.
I think I have... I agree. It's too much. I think I'm like 20 to 25 somewhere there. Actually, I'm not really a collector of forms. Yeah. So I prefer not to learn the forms too fast.
Yeah, it's better actually.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I look at it is like because my core styles, Xingyi, is not form heavy. It has become in recent generations, but I mean, as I was being taught an old way, we don't focus on form as much as we focus on repetition of individual techniques and small combinations for hours and hours. I mean, you've seen us practice.
Right.
And
yeah.
And for me, when there's a new form or for me, I always break it down. I always pull out parts that are not new. So if there's something that's not new, then it's not really a new form. And then you can break it up and say which part of this is not existent in all the other elements or the 12 animal individual techniques and those things. And you'll find very little from form to form that's totally different. So, you know, I mean, the you could have, I would say there's obviously value in having a core group of forms which has a purpose of collecting techniques in just a systemized, organized way so you can remember them. But once it goes beyond that, it kind of becomes just a hard work to remember all of these different forms. It doesn't become something that necessarily develops more skill.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so I get what you're saying, but I think, you know, you obviously have a focus on applying your martial arts, so you also look at it in a different way to most people. Which are your more? I mean, which of your the content that you've learned would you feel is something that's closer to your heart?
Content, like you mean
forms, whatever you've learned within your Hung family practice.
Oh. Well, in terms of like the bare hand forms, I like all of them. Each of the form, actually, the in terms of content, like what kind of techniques are in the forms, at least half in the next form, it's what you learn like already in some other form.
Right.
So it doesn't change so much. So you can see the core.
Right.
In terms of weapons, I really like long stick. Yeah. I really like long stick.
And you actually competed with that a few times when I was even still working for the international organization.
It's pretty traditional form, but it's beautiful. I love it so much. It's really difficult, and you can go really deep.
Yeah.
In that one. Yeah.
And it's practical, I must say. It's a very practical, applicable, you know, usage of a staff. But more importantly, the staff as a whole in today's society is something that's probably closer to something that you might actually have functional use with in one form or another. And we actually saw it during the protests down in Hong Kong that some people were getting sticks together and working together. So,
right.
Yeah, it's very good. I think Hung Ga's staff work is very good. It's something that I've also always looked into. And you said something that's important that I think that also is quite key. You said it's beautiful. And, you know, for people that practice martial arts, well, genuine martial arts on a deeper level, we define beauty in a different way. So for us, the value of its practicality, its expression, its spirit, is what we define as beautiful in a form. Whereas if you look at what people that aren't involved will look at it, they'd say, yeah, but it's not as cool or as flashy or as something as. But for me, that's ugly, and yeah, it's just a different way of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
When did you make the transition and start doing MMA?
2.5 years ago. Yeah, 2.5 years ago.
And you,
I went to a first club. Even a bit earlier, and in the second class I sprained my ankle.
Great.
Then I stopped months, and then I had some competitions with Kung Fu to focus on, and then it took some time, and then I started again. I went to Thailand, and then everything just changed.
I remember that. I remember how drastically it changed you when you went and fought in Thailand. And I remember how you suddenly became very much focused on like something concrete, that this is what you wanted to do. Whereas I think before that you were still kind of trying to figure it out if it was something you really wanted to do.
Yeah, I started with MMA. I was like, okay, this is fun. I'm here just for some kind of cross training, you know, some sparring. I'm never gonna compete in this.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, maybe I could try. And I was like, okay, I want to do it. Like, just let me try that. I can do this too.
Yeah.
And then they let me, and I got beaten up, and I got so angry that I didn't have any kind of control over the fight. You know, I wanted to do it again. Then I was like, oh, maybe I can actually turn professional. Could I? Or am I too old? And I was like, yeah. And then suddenly, like I decided, okay, I'm gonna turn professional. Yeah, this is what I'm gonna do now with my life.
And is there an avenue for professional leagues where you are in Hong Kong now?
Well, MMA is not so structured as a sport, unless you look at the International MMA Federation.
Right.
But otherwise, so if you compete there, you only can compete there. Otherwise, you compete in like different kind of competitions that are like private, basically.
Yeah.
So like a show, an event, like a promotion.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I'm gonna turn professional, I'm probably looking at some of the like Asian promotion. Probably not in Hong Kong. There's only one promotion in Hong Kong, but honestly, I'm too heavy for Hong Kong.
Really? There's no one to fight you?
There were like two girls in Hong Kong. One I fought twice, and one I fought once. No, one more. But like it's really difficult to fight someone in my weight class. So I'm now like fighting 61, and that's difficult.
You're too heavy at 61 kilos. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm too heavy. I'm too heavy.
Yeah. So I remember when you went and fought in Thailand, and I mean, did you have a lot of time to prepare for that? Did you feel like you had prepared enough?
Yeah, Thailand was my second fight, and it was a really funny one because that was my first time fighting in a cage without a helmet, abroad, and without my coach or like anyone going there with me. So I was like going alone. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a fight. Oh, there's a fight in Thailand. They have opponent. Okay, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna fight. And it was so crazy that I actually, luckily, I didn't realize like how crazy it is. So
that was a bit crazy, honestly.
Yeah, I know.
And it wasn't like in the middle of a big, international kind of city. You were out in the middle of nowhere fighting.
I was like 4 hours away from Bangkok in a night market at night, and with all the music and it was amazing. I love it. It was great. I was so happy. And this is how I met my nowadays coach, because he was there. And yeah, it was so great. I was prepared, like mentally and physically. I was prepared for that, which wouldn't be enough now. But for that time, it was really good. I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, you were at a different gym with a different coach before that fight finished, and you moved on to the coach that you met there. And I remember discussing that with you. And I mean, was it the experience of the fight? Was it your perspective gained from the fight? Was it what made you decide that you needed to move on?
Well, so it's complex. So like moving gyms, it's not easy. Like I always tend to create a relationship with my coach, like really personal one. Yeah. So it's really important we have good communication, we have good relationship. It's basically like I still use the model of like Shifu and
same. Yeah, same.
So right. So like it took me several months before I made the decision to move. Yeah. And it was several things. Like I felt like I am putting more into like the whole thing than my previous coach did, and I felt like he didn't actually trust into me so much. And I actually was afraid to say that I want to turn professional because I was afraid people would laugh to me. Right. And my new coach, he took it as a like finished thing. He never like laughed. He never like questioned it. He was like, okay, so you're gonna like work your ass off because you are going to turn professional.
Right. Is your current coach, is he from Hong Kong originally?
Tankwa, he is partially from Hong Kong and from Thailand. So the gym I'm training in now is it's a Thai gym in Hong Kong.
Oh, okay, interesting. So do they have a separate focus on Muay Thai and Thai boxing?
Yeah, there is a hard focus on Muay Thai, a strong focus on Muay Thai, and then also for MMA as well, because my coach fought both Muay Thai and MMA. Yeah. He's actually a really good fighter. Some people say he has the biggest potential in Hong Kong. Yeah, so there's both. I was quite surprised to see that there is really good base for BJJ as well.
Really, in the gym?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So you've got all the main checks that are usually comprised of an MMA's content, which would be grappling in the form of probably jiu-jitsu, maybe some wrestling. You've got Muay Thai in terms of striking. So yeah, that's pretty good. When you started doing MMA from Hung Ga, what skills do you think from your traditional background helped you there?
That's a difficult question.
Yeah.
Because people usually think that when you train kung fu for so long, or some kind of traditional martial art, and then you start like fighting, that you must be a good fighter to start with. But that's not the truth, right? Because like you have to forget your ego and just start from the beginning. Let everyone kick your ass and get all the beating.
Yep.
So, this is difficult for me because like I am. If you ask me what I'm not good at, or what kind of things I need to work on, I can give you a list.
Well, that's with everything that we should be like that forever with everything we do.
Yeah. But like if you're asking me what actually was good, I took from Hung Ga. Like I would say that I have some striking potential probably, but mostly what I took over were some kind of like sideline things, such as like balance and
a base.
Maybe like understanding things in terms of biomechanics. Like I would recognize things in MMA that I actually learned in Hung Ga, or it's like the same thing. So like in terms of striking, I basically like see colorful lines in front of my eyes telling me like the geometry of the movement. What should I do?
You're like the Rain Man of MMA. I guess that's a good thing though, because the more you can understand it in those terms, the better you're going to be at it. So I
hope so.
I found that a lot of guys that have deep, guys and girls, sorry about that, but a lot of people that have a deep development of good traditional martial arts over a period of time, when they start fighting, they have a good base. And I don't mean base as like a basic skills. I mean, they're stable. They're hard to make them move the way you want them to move. They're hard to make them fall down, and they tend to recover from attacks and awkward, uncomfortable situations a lot faster and a lot better at a very basic level. That's what I found, specifically with good Chinese martial arts, because Chinese martial arts have a very interesting aspect, is that most of them are mixed to some degree. They're not purely striking or pure, apart from a few. There are exceptions, but in general, they're mixed. They have some striking, they have kicking, they have throwing, they have grappling, they have short range, they have some long range. They focus, but in general, you have tools, a few tools from all of these. And I think that carries over quite well if they come from a good background and then go into a good location to put them into use. So that's really good. And go ahead.
Okay. Another thing is that like Kung Fu really made me like I feel healthy and I feel strong and my body is ready. Yeah, Kung Fu made my body ready for that.
That's very true too. So as a lot of people start trying to do these, even if they go into MMA, but if they start very late with that, it's a very long and hard process just to get their body in the right condition, and not fitness wise, but general condition from elasticity, flexibility, endurance, things like that in terms of general physical abilities. Yeah, Chinese martial arts will definitely get you ready for all of that.
Yeah, I just feel that it should be said that actually I'm no one in MMA right now. That I'm still an amateur. So like, to let the people out there know that actually I am not like professional fighter or anything yet.
Well, that my focus on and when I have people on this podcast, I like to have people that have gone in and done things deeply. So within Chinese martial arts, there's not so many Westerners that decide, all right, I'm going to leave my comfort and I'm going to go halfway around the world to a place that has a culture that I'm not used to, a lifestyle that's totally alien, and a language I don't understand, simply because I want to study this deeply. So, you know, I mean, irrespective of where you're going with your MMA, you've already done that with Hung Ga, and there's not so many people that have done that. And, you know, I hope whatever does happen with your MMA future, that your Hung Ga not only gets enriched by it, but it's not something that you give up in terms of, never mind your practice, personal practice.
No, definitely not. Like, definitely not.
Yeah.
Like, Hung Ga is really important for my personal life, but also, like, for my fighting. Basically, it's the same thing for me. MMA Hung Ga, same thing.
And that's what we need in Chinese martial arts today. And your experience that you gain from whatever your course takes you through your MMA journey, you can enrich your Hung Ga with that too. And then hopefully when you because I know you're teaching some kids now. I've seen your very scientific, very organized, very professional approach to it, which is what is needed. But your experiences that will help with the next generation is also important. So it's not something that should be overlooked. So you did a degree though. You did a PhD.
Yeah.
What led you to that in Hong Kong?
So when I was looking at how I can live in Hong Kong in terms of like income and what can I do to keep myself alive in Hong Kong and train, it was either get a job or do a PhD.
Okay.
And so one of the reasons was to get myself in Hong Kong, and the second reason was that I just wanted to do some research about Kung Fu. So I applied and I failed, and I kept failing for a few months, and then suddenly I got in when I was already in Hong Kong. So I quit my second job and I started my PhD in sports psychology.
Right. And what was the topic of your dissertation?
Psychological collectivism and mental toughness in traditional Chinese martial arts.
So could you give us some insight into all of that and your findings?
Right. So I did a huge research, qualitative and quantitative, mixed method, structure equation modeling, that's kind of like monster in statistics, and interpretative phenomenological analysis, that's about experience and meaning. And I look for how Europeans who train in traditional wushu like Kung Fu, how they see psychological collectivism, like how they behave, if they behave in collectivistic way. And I also look at how mentally tough they are, and if these two things are connected. And in the quantitative part, I also compare them to modern wushu people, Europeans.
Okay. Was your entire study just based in Europe?
I traveled China for that as well, but I didn't like include Chinese practitioners because I really believe you would need a cross-culture psychologist for that, and someone who can like speak fluently Putonghua Chinese, or So I focused on Europeans, but I did 1 month in China and around 3 or 4 months in Europe.
Yeah, I remember when you came to China, you came and you watched my training with my teacher and a few of us there. As part of that, you went through to Shanghai to the Beijing team and watched the sports side of things. And what would you?
I went to.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
I went to Shanghai and Beijing, the universities.
Yeah.
And your Shifu, and then also Wudang, and of course Shaolin. I found 2 schools there. One more sporty, the other one more on terms of like traditional Kung Fu. And I went to Foshan. So actually I took I took this opportunity to also like look at how people train and go through the experiences. So I really enjoy it so that I could write and do some videos about it. That's how I started the Kung Fu Academic, the brand I'm now still using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember some of your early blogs as well, which covered your experiences here. So in your through your research, what conclusions did you come to?
Well, quite few. Okay, so for the qualitative part, there is not like one thing. There are lots of like topics that came out. But for example, there was a topic of seriousness, like how serious you are, that you need to be understood by the masters as being serious enough, so they would allow themselves to actually be mean to you, not just appraise you, and really like start teaching you, and like let you get closer to the center of the community, the bearer of the knowledge actually. So this kind of seriousness is like a commodity that you would like work with.
Right.
Like
would you say that this whole procedure, I mean, I had a previous guest in a podcast that hasn't been released yet, but we discussed well, actually no, he did release it, but we discussed the significance of a Baishe ceremony, which is a disciple ceremony in Chinese martial arts, which for better or for worse in modern days has slightly degraded in what it actually means. But when you said seriousness, for me that's what this was. And the way my teacher approaches this thing, not in terms of the ceremony itself, but who gets to go through that and when they get to go through it, it's based on the seriousness. And I mean, this is something that unfortunately in many aspects, especially with sport wushu, is lost, that it doesn't have this seriousness in terms of the relationship seriousness. There isn't that. And that, as you said, is connected to getting deeper knowledge. Would you say that that's quite accurate?
Yeah, it is. But there's also like a second part to it, which is some kind of control and power, not on your side.
Yeah.
So like the more you want to be closer to the center of the community or to the knowledge, the more they control you, and the more you have to give up from yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, so, very true.
So the more, right? So like the Pisces, right?
Yeah.
It goes both ways, but basically I know of people who decided they will not do it because they were afraid of the control that the community will have over them. And it's not, it's like it's a real thing. Like even for me as a European who probably won't live forever here in Hong Kong, when I did my Pisces, I was aware of that. It's actually really like serious thing. And when people around, they were like congratulating, not to me but to my Shifu, like he gained a daughter.
Yeah, so, that's exactly
like,
it. It's a relationship that becomes it formalizes, or what's the word, it's in a discussion I had with somebody else, I explained it. It's like you can train with somebody and suddenly once you've gone through this, because your relationship has developed to that point, once you go through Baishe, there's a lot more responsibility, and people simply think, oh, it's just this ridiculous ceremony, it's just for show or whatever, but it's not. It's like saying a wedding ceremony is just for show. It's not. Yeah. It's not. Two people can live together and not be married, and even though they might, genuinely care for each other, the reality and the seriousness of the relationship is not the same. Once they get married, it's suddenly a lot more serious, but it's the same two people doing exactly the same thing they've been doing for a number of years already. So that does have an effect, for sure. So you finished your PhD. When did you finish?
When did I finish? Around year and a half ago. Yeah, year and a half ago.
And you want to stay in Hong Kong? I mean, you've stayed there since. You're still training. You're going down your MMA path. You're still training with your Hung Ga, your Hung Kune Sifu. You never, apart from, I'm sure your mom and dad were like, come back home. But did you ever consider this?
Well, yeah, like every time I go home, it's difficult. So you start reflecting, like if it's the right thing we're doing, and like if it's enough or not yet. So I came to Hong Kong because of Hung Kune, and now I'm staying because of MMA.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to move back to Czech yet, but I'm probably ready to move to Thailand if the opportunity comes.
Really? Is that where? And anywhere in particular that you want to train?
Well, I feel really well at Tiger in Phuket, so yeah.
Yeah, Tiger's a very
right.
well-known gym.
Yeah. I've been there 4 times, and the first time it was actually just when I started with MMA. So I didn't know what I'm going into, and the experience there really made me like remember how I loved fighting before I stopped fighting. So it was like, okay, this is who I am. I forgot who I am for like 10 years, but now I remember again.
Yeah. So you would go there if the opportunity arose for you to relocate there, you would?
Yeah. I have a new job now. Besides for coaching Kung Fu, I am now working remotely for one great company. They are doing alternative education things with like unstructured play in the forest. And Hong Kong Forest Adventures.
Okay.
So because of them, they really put trust in me. So I'm like the first employee they have on a remote basis. So I can now take my job and go train in Thailand or anywhere else, basically.
Oh, okay. That's a real big bonus for you. It frees you up to be able to go somewhere if you need to without the risk of work, etc. That's a good thing.
Well, it's so good that I still don't believe it.
Well, maybe it's destiny. Maybe it's what should have happened. You know, maybe that's just pushing you into a direction. Is there no MMA back in the Czech Republic? I mean,
oh yeah, there is. Actually, I never trained MMA in Czech, so I don't know how does it feel like or how does it look like. So I really want to try when I'm back home visiting. Yeah. Last time I went there, I just tried BJJ and I broke my little toe on one class, on the first class.
Jesus,
so
how did you do that? Would they get stuck in the corner of a...
yeah, they had like quite old
puzzle
tatami
mats.
with puzzle mats with a gap in between. I left my little toe there, and when I swept, I just broke it.
Yeah, that's how it normally happens. Puzzle mats with old puzzle mats with broken connections, and you break your toes. So yeah, that's terrible. That's terrible. But I mean, if I think you're going to be looking to relocate probably to Thailand, but definitely stay in Asia and keep your training going. And
well, everyone is coming to Asia for training, so like I would be stupid to going home for training.
Yeah, that's true too. Unless you had some very well-known gyms and camps back home that made it that you don't have to go anywhere, but.
Yeah, I'm sure they are good gyms, but like the risk, like you don't know, right? You don't know how is it over there.
Yeah.
How is it back home? So yeah.
Yeah, now home is a foreign country now, isn't it?
I don't know where the home is anymore.
Yeah. I didn't ask you though, how is your Cantonese now after all these years?
My Cantonese, I have like up and downs. So when I feel happy and like happy I'm here, I learn my like with a textbook. When I feel like frustrated and I want to get out of here and I hate all these people here, then I stop learning. Been up and down, but like Hung Ga was always taught in Cantonese, and my MMA coach he like most of the time also speaks Cantonese only.
Yeah.
So like I can understand more than I can actually speak.
But that's okay. It makes you be able to at least get around. To live there. I forgot to ask you when we were discussing your time here in China, when you observed my my teacher's group of people training, did you see many overlaps with the training that you're used to back in Hong Kong? Not in terms of content, of course, it's different styles, but in terms of the social interactions and the method of the class.
To be honest, in Hong Kong, most of the times it's about the form. And sometimes when I do application with my Shifu, it's at the end where everyone else is gone and it's just me and him.
Okay.
Or something around. But like methods of like drilling thing or like doing some basic movement over and over, it's difficult to spot it here.
Really?
So usually I'm the person doing that.
Yeah.
And people like look at me like she's crazy.
Right.
So like when I do these things with the kids or with the adults I coach, that's usually when I like sit down. Okay, I need them to do this. How do I get them to do this? Okay, I'm gonna use this thing, or I'm a kind of geek in terms of like tools. So like I really like to use resistant bands and I don't know, different kind of things. So like with the help of these, how I gonna get them where I need them to be.
When you came and saw us then training, you must have thought you found your family of crazy people, because we were doing repetitive drills over and over, partner stuff, and we pulled out elastics at some point too. So yeah.
Right, it's like this is basically like the first time I really saw traditional kung fu in China. And by traditional kung fu, I don't mean like old forms or forms when you don't jump, but where you actually train the function. Function is for me traditional kung fu.
Yeah, true. Very true. Yeah, it's interesting to see. I mean, there's also a stark difference, obviously, that you saw between modern sport wushu too in that regard, and it's something that's being lost. So, and you yourself competed. How many times did you compete in international traditional kung fu competition?
I don't know, like many times. Okay, European championships maybe like 4 or 5 times, 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. I remember the second last Worlds that I was working at, and you were competing there. What is your general outlook on that direction? Is it something that you think you would want to do again, or do you find that give me your opinion on that.
Well, International Wushu Federation is like something I would like to stay away of. Like going for the World Championship even last time was more like I was going there with the Czech team and I was enjoying that, and I was enjoying actually the view of some of those like younger kids going there without actually knowing how it is in reality,
right,
and all the politics background. So you could see the things from their like, you know, through their eyes, like wow, China, wow, culture, wow, like all the people here, and like meeting all the people from different countries. But like in terms of like sport, even like quality of the competition is like so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, quality from organization, quality of competition. I mean, we've had this discussion numerous times. For me, it's the degradation of Chinese martial arts on a whole, and I don't think that in fact any of those endeavors are doing anything for the correct, whether we want to say re-promotion or correct future promotion of Chinese martial arts with all these nuances. And I mean, your PhD heavily focuses on one of the core aspects of the nuances of Chinese martial arts in terms of, you know, those aspects of society, social relationships, mental and psychological toughness, attitude. I don't think that what's happening currently in the official events is got anything to do with that or has any benefit to that, to be honest. We could say that going to a competition might make you tough, but at the same time, that could be said for any sport. But how much are we losing from the actual Chinese martial art core with the current method that they're following? And you know this quite well.
Yeah.
So
like what I see the European Federation is doing, I'm much more happy with that, and it should have come earlier. It's something that I really wished for several years ago to see, and now they are doing it.
yeah,
So I have hope. I have hope for that.
yeah,
Like for me, competing, you know, there are lots of people in the traditional martial arts or Hung Ga that they're like against competing in general.
yeah.
I was always, I love competing.
Sure.
I like going to the platform and like doing my stuff. I like the training towards it. It's really helped me in like polishing my kung fu, because you have the focus. You're basically going through a camp.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
for sure.
by pushing yourself against, even if there are modern wushu people in my group that shouldn't be there, or like it's not really fair, at least I can compare myself, my traditional kung fu, to them not so traditional kung fu, but they're like speed and power and these kind of things.
Physical aspects, yeah.
Right, yeah. So it definitely helped me. Yeah, it definitely helped me in some sorts.
Yeah.
In some areas.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and yeah, there is benefit to it. Like I said, sport can be used as an avenue to help to develop a tradition, but it has to be done correctly. And we can't say that because it's sport, therefore we can throw everything else out. It's all irrespective.
Right.
We should find the correct balance, the correct way to do it, and you need the right people involved. So that's unfortunately the complications we have, as you said, politics wise as well. So yeah. Well, Veronika, it's been very good talking to you. I mean, is there anything that you'd like to cover that we haven't covered?
I'm not sure. No, it was great.
Yeah, it was good. I'm confident in what your future holds for you. I wish you the best of luck. We've always been friends. We'll always stay in contact. So I hope everything goes well with all your dreams and your wishes there.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye.